Hello and most welcome to 1751 of the Heidegger series. In Waiting for Horridge, we have a new paper here about the picture. The picture is one of the most pertinent factors in Wittgenstein, but it's also the one that is the hardest to grasp. Affeldt here makes a good try at introducing us to the picture that's behind. And I previously in the mentioned in 1750 that human beings as containers and sort of magnets to the reality outside is a dominant feature of the picture. Although I cannot say that I have the picture in its entirety, that is definitely one part of it. One decisive, important part. This one will be a bit shorter. For lack of time, we will continue next, so we can call this A. And we go to the text, page 2 in the written edition. Captivating pictures and liberating language. Freedom as the achievement of speech. In Wittgenstein's philosophical investigations. Stephen G. Affeldt, University of Notre Dame. Introduction. Philosophy, bewitchment, and language. At Philosophical Investigations, paragraph 109, Wittgenstein famously characterizes philosophy as a battle against the bewitchment of our intelligence by means of language. Even without yet stopping to consider exactly what Wittgenstein means by the bewitchment of our intelligence, or how he understands his practice of philosophy to battle against that bewitchment. This remark may be recognized as emblematic of a direction of thought which is pervasive throughout philosophical investigations. It is emblematic of that direction of Wittgenstein's thought, in which he is concerned to show the extent of our subjection to various forms of captivation, confusion, emptiness, nonsense, mystification, and the like, to discover the sources of these forms of subjection and to offer measures of liberation from them. As such, this remark provides one clear instance of moments throughout philosophical investigations which have encouraged many of its readers to feel that the text harbors some form of morally redemptive ambition and is involved, at least in part, in some form of morally redemptive work. However, given that the investigations does not separately and explicitly address such matters, readers who have discerned a redemptive dimension within the text have faced difficulties in making very clear the character of this redemptive ambition, and yet greater difficulties in showing that and how any kind of redemptive work is being conducted within the details of the text itself. Accordingly, these readers have, for the most part, adopted one of the following two courses. Some have focused primarily upon the small range of so-called meta-philosophical remarks within philosophical investigations, or upon Wittgenstein's comparatively minor text, such as lectures and conversations on aesthetics, psychology and religious belief, or the scattered remarks brought together by Georg Henrik von Wright as culture and value, and have sought to extract some kind of morally redemptive vision from these remarks or texts. Others have focused upon more central texts, preeminently philosophical investigations and remarks on the foundations of mathematics. However, they have also not undertaken to reveal a morally redemptive undertaking directly within these texts. Rather, they have in effect conceded that these texts do not directly address issues of ethics or morality, and have instead argued that various of their lessons about language, meaning, rationality, forms of life, and the like might be brought to ethics or prove useful in considering meta-ethical questions involving the nature of moral judgment, the rationality of moral argument, and the nature of the enterprise of ethics itself. Much of the work produced in the following each of these courses has been productive and valuable. However, as productive and valuable as this work can be, unless a form of morally redemptive ambition and morally redemptive work can be shown to be both clearly present within and central to the major texts of Wittgenstein's later period, it will remain open to those of his readers who do not antecedently discern such an ambition in these texts, or have no use for such an ambition to regard any redemptive vision which might be extracted from his scattered remarks, or any ethical or meta-ethical lessons which might be drawn from his major later texts as essentially separate from the primary philosophical aims of his work. The concern of this essay is, therefore, to begin to show the presence of what I understand to be a morally redemptive ambition and morally redemptive work, which is central to and pervasive within the details of philosophical investigations. There are at least two immediate obstacles facing this project. First, as I have noted, the text does not separately and explicitly address these matters. Indeed, in his preface, Wittgenstein identifies the subjects of the investigations as the concepts of meaning, of understanding, of a proposition, of logic, the foundations of mathematics, states of consciousness, and other things. This just means, however, that we must arrive at the perspective on the text which will enable us to see that and how morally redemptive work is being directly undertaken in the details of Wittgenstein's treatments of these subjects. That is, we must come to see that and how the morally redemptive project is not an isolated dimension of Wittgenstein's work, but is seamlessly interwoven throughout philosophical investigations and is accordingly as multifaceted and complex as the detailed treatments of the various subjects through which it takes shape. A second immediate obstacle facing this project lies in the still prevailing institutional divisions between the analytical and the continental traditions of philosophy. For the analytical tradition is best placed to deal with the technical details of the subjects which occupy the investigations, but its methods and self-understanding are structured so as to occlude the morally redemptive work undertaken through those details. And the continental tradition is better placed to recognize the morally redemptive undertaking of the text, but its methods and self-understanding are structured so as to be ill-equipped to deal with the technical details which make that undertaking concrete and effective. I would like to hope, therefore, that this essay may contribute to the work of overcoming these institutional divisions, and that it may encourage a sense of value and desirability of such work. I have been suggesting that the morally redemptive undertaking of philosophical investigations can only be discovered in its details, and that the efficacy of this undertaking depends upon our engaging with those details. Accordingly, in bulk of this essay, I will be working through the details of a small set of specific passages in order to explore one instance of Wittgenstein's redemptive work. Prior to turning to these passages, however, I want to consider a bit more fully Wittgenstein's claim at paragraph 109 that philosophy is a battle against the bewitchment of our intelligence by means of language. In particular, I want to elaborate briefly two markedly different readings of this remark. For these two different readings issue in quite different conceptions of any possible redemptive ambition of the text. On the first and most familiar reading, it suggests that our ordinary language is the source of the bewitchment of our intelligence. The idea is that ordinary language contains within itself traps of various kinds, and that these traps lay hold of our intelligence and lead us into confusion when we incautiously rely upon superficial features of ordinary language as a guide to understanding in philosophy. On this way of taking Wittgenstein's remark, it might be recast as language is the means of bewitchment of our intelligence, and philosophy is a battle against that bewitchment. On the second reading of Wittgenstein's remark, it does not suggest that our language is the source of our captivity in thought, but that it is or can be the means of our liberation. On this reading, that is, ordinary language is understood as the means or the tool with which philosophy battles the bewitchment of our intelligence, and the source of sources of that bewitchment are left unspecified. So understood, Wittgenstein's claim might be recast as philosophy is the battle by means of language against the bewitchment of our intelligence. The first of these two readings places Wittgenstein in considerable alignment with a long tradition of thought in philosophy, which regards ordinary language as inherently misleading and as unsuitable for the purposes of serious thought. This tradition extends from at least as early as Descartes cautioning himself in the second meditation that although I am considering these points within myself silently and without speaking, yet I stumble over words and am almost deceived by ordinary language. Through Frege's development of a concept script in order to free thought from the misconceptions with which the means of expression of ordinary language, constituted as they are, saddle it to at least as recently as the various cautions which have been entered against being misled about the nature of mind by the language of what is called folk psychology. Wittgenstein's recurrence in the investigations to the idea that our forms of expression mislead us may appear to provide grounds for such an alignment and to support the first reading of his remark at paragraph 109. In paragraph 90, for example, Wittgenstein suggests that we are misled by analogies between the forms of expression proper to different regions of language. In this instance, our forms of expression are not judged to be inherently misleading within the proper regions of language. Rather, we are misled in our thinking in a given area due to analogies between the forms of expression proper to that area and forms of expression proper to another area. In other instances, however, Wittgenstein does appear to suggest that our forms of expression are inherently misleading. In paragraph 36, for example, he remarks that where our language suggests a body, there's none. There, we should like to say, is a spirit. Here, it can seem as though our language holds open a space for a non-existent body, and so invites us, or even encourages us to mistakenly fill that object space in language with a spirit. And to note simply one further instance, in paragraph 94, Wittgenstein quite directly links our sense that a proposition is a queer thing with our forms of expression. He remarks that our forms of expression prevents us in all sorts of ways from seeing that nothing out of the ordinary is involved in a proposition, by sending us in pursuit of chimeras. And we put a note there, we need to preemptively stop. Chimeras, what a grand word. 1751. We take quote next time. I would just mention that it's very enticing and interesting from the beginning, and it's pointing to that the deception can be in language itself. And also, as duly noted before, it is our intelligence that is tricking itself. I have some suggestions there. Too quick to make a conclusion. B could be thanks to its great power, to its knowledge, it makes suggestions or makes explications or explanations that are not fit. And we have a great mistake before, the cosmological fallacies. They are of incredibly grave consequences, not mentioned in this text, but the results of those mistakes are enormous for humanity. It goes well beyond physics or cosmology. They are grand in their screen. Maybe a short comment from my dear colleague Kalle here.
Yes, the question is a language, ordinary language or language in general, an enemy or a tool?
Very good.
And we could mention this phrase here. Here it can seem as though our language holds open a space for a non-existent body, and so invites us, or even encourages us, to mistakenly feel that object space in language with a spirit.
Indeed.
So, how should we understand this phrase, this cryptic phrase? Is this a little bit about the implicit and explicit? Is this phrase not against the implicit? For spirit is the implicit.
No, the spirit would be implicit if we don't feel it out.
The spirit would be implicit if we don't feel it out.
Yes.
No, is it not vice versa? Spirit is already the spirit is already implicit.
Well, if we fill that object space in language with the spirit, that will make it explicit. But the implicit is not to feel it. That's my take anyway. I don't know yet, Kalle, so I don't have the answer. But it's a thought, definitely.
Or probably they should be in harmony. So the explicit is the body, and the spirit is the implicit, and they should be in harmony. Both. We need the explicit and the implicit also in language.
Yes, indeed. What we can talk about and what we cannot mention or not put in language go hand in hand, so to speak. And I think, and this is just a guess, I don't know, Wittgenstein usually talks about what we cannot talk about as the most important, that the implicit is the most important. But we can leave that until next time. It's interesting things for thought, isn't it?
Absolutely, thank you. Absolutely.
So we stopped at 258. I will say thank you very much for everyone for coming. Have a very nice day, morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. And bye-bye for now.